Italian focaccia bread is one of my all-time favorites. So today I'm teaching you how to make a sandwich-style focaccia that you can use on all of your favorite sandwiches. In my opinion, focaccia is the perfect sandwich bread because it's crispy on the outside and fluffy on the inside. I'm going to show you step by step how to make this recipe, as well as some insider tips from a former Italian culinary student. I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and don't forget to subscribe for more bread recipes. Start out by mixing bread flour and instant dry yeast in a stand mixer fitted with a dough hook attachment on medium-low speed. Next, with the mixer running slowly, add your water in 3 separate batches. Since focaccia is a high hydration dough, you need to allow the water to slowly absorb into the flour, which is why we do it in 3 different batches. After each batch, you'll notice the water slowly start to absorb, and once you don't see puddles of water, that's when you can add in your next batch of water. Mixing this focaccia dough does take a while, but it's really important to be patient and go slow so that way you have the best focaccia bread possible. Once you've added in your last batch of water, give it time to absorb, and then you'll pour in your sugar. Mix this until everything is thoroughly combined, and then we're moving on to our extra virgin olive oil. For this recipe, you'll want to make sure that you find a high quality extra virgin olive oil because the dough will taste exactly like this olive oil. It's part of the beauty of focaccia, but it also means that you'll need a high quality one that tastes delicious. Slowly pour in your extra virgin olive oil into the center of the dough. If you have a KitchenAid mixer, you might find that the dough hook gets caught, especially if the olive oil runs along the side of the mixer. However, pouring it into the center of the dough is helpful, and it allows the dough to incorporate easier with the extra virgin olive oil. Now, if you notice your hook starts to get caught in the olive oil and it spins without actually mixing the dough, use a silicone spatula and force the dough around the dough hook. This will help the dough hook actually catch, so that way your oil continues mixing with the dough. Now, there's a lot of olive oil that goes into this recipe, so you'll have to do this in small batches. I would suggest 4 batches in order to fully mix in the olive oil. Once you've added in your last batch of olive oil, you'll also go ahead and add in your salt. This will help all of the oil to absorb. Then bump up your mixer speed to high and mix until you hear a popping sound, and the dough will also wrap around the dough hook. This usually takes about 1 to 2 additional minutes of mixing. At this point, the dough will be very smooth but also sticky. Roll the dough into a tight ball, then place it in an oiled bowl roughly 3 times the size of the dough. You'll cover that with plastic wrap and then allow it to rise in a warm, draft-free place until it's tripled in size. Typically, I like to put my dough somewhere near a window so it gets sunlight and natural heat. Your rise time will vary depending on the temperature of your environment, but the main thing is that it's tripled in size. Once you've reached this point, you'll generously oil the bottom and the sides of a 12 by 18 inch sheet pan. This is important because it ensures that the bread will not stick during the baking process. Pour the dough out on the baking sheet, and then we're going to use gravity to allow the dough to naturally stretch until it reaches the edge of the pan. If you notice the dough pulling back to the center after you've stretched it almost as far as it needs to go, just allow the dough to rest in the sheet pan for an additional 10 minutes. This rest time will allow the dough to stretch easier without pulling back. Then use your fingertips to make indentations on the top of the focaccia bread. This is a signature of this type of bread, so don't skip this step. Next, we're making our focaccia topping, and this is something I learned directly from culinary school in Italy. It's a mixture of oil and water, and it really helps the top to crisp up. You'll pour this on top of your bread, and then we need some seasoning, so we're going to use some flaky sea salt and just sprinkle that over the top. Then we have one final step before baking. We need to cover the sheet pan with plastic wrap and allow it to proof in a warm, draft-free place until again tripled in size. This usually takes about an hour. Once it's ready, place it in a preheated 430 Fahrenheit oven and bake for 25 to 30 minutes. When you pull it out of the oven, it should be golden brown and crispy on top. Place the focaccia on a cooling rack and then cover with a tea towel. This will ensure that your bread stays nice and soft while it cools. Once the focaccia is cooled, you'll cut it into large slices for your sandwiches. I like really large sandwiches, so I tend to slice it into 8 different pieces. Once you have your pieces, you can slice those in half and then begin building your focaccia sandwich. Now you can really add anything you want to this sandwich, but one of my personal favorites starts with using pistachio pesto. Then we're adding on some mortadella, as well as some stracciatella cheese, which is actually the inside of burrata. Sprinkle the cheese with a few crushed pistachios, optionally add some arugula, and then you have a delicious sandwich that you're gonna love. The full recipe along with tips and tricks will be linked in the description below.